Mhm.
There's a lot of misconceptions about Freemasons. Can
Mhm.
you talk to us about Freemasonry from an African perspective?
From an African perspective, um, I can only give you the line of what they call Cecilia, the secession. So I'm raised at Prince Hall in Savannah, Georgia, by a brother named Tashaka Malik, worshipful master Tashaka Malik, right? And he's a third generation Prince Hall. Anybody don't know about anything about Prince Hall was one of the first Black and African Mason that was accepted by, the traditional European Masons here in America. However, the charter in which when they raise you by the tiger claw and they raise you from that point in the worshipful master, and he gives you the from mouth to ear the sacred word, which I can't reveal here. They give you the sacred word in your ear, and you look up and you see a charter. Our charter was from Liberia, and that charter in Liberia goes way back because most of the African American ex-slaves went to Liberia, formed Liberia. They formed Liberia, and they were Masons. And so, through a lot of the research and investigation of these Masons, the charter that we received from Liberia is a charter that goes back to 54 AD with Nimrod, what they call Sargon. Nimrod was one of the first Masons when he was a Cushite, but he went into Mesopotamia and he taught the Sumerians, taught them about this school of thought, this science of organization, so that they can build the Tower of Babel, according to that story, or they can build buildings or build edifices. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what masonry is. You have what they call speculative masons and you have an operative mason. I'm both. I'm an operative mason because I've studied how I was a refinisher for cement. So I was able to physically lay bricks, do the mortar, and work in construction. I did that for some years. I wanted to learn, and I did that some years. I was one of the, I helped build City Walk over here in Orlando, Florida, the City Walk, which is Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. I helped build that. And so that's an operative mason. Now, speculative masonry comes from the act of taking the symbols and the organizations of operative masons and putting symbols and speculating upon it. You know what I'm saying? So that's how we became speculative masons. And the speculative masonry was used throughout Nile Valley and throughout Africa because they had to build. They became operative masons. And operative masons, that craft was protected. That was run by families and families. So, as you come in as an enter apprentice, you don't use the tools. It's just like coming to an organization. You're the person that go get the coffee, do this. You know what I'm saying? You're an enter apprentice. You're an apprentice. You're there just to do errands. Then when you get into the fellow craftsmen, now you carry the tools, but you don't use the tools. You're the person that the actual master mason says, you have the tools, but you can't use the tools. You know what I'm saying? Then when you get to a master mason, you're actually using the tools. You know what I'm saying? So in speculative masons, it's the same thing. The same concept. They took this, again, they hid their craft. They hid it through these different sciences, and it goes back into Nile Valley when they were building those temples of Thebes, Heliopolis, the temple of Anu, and the temple of Thebes, right? And Hathor, the temple of Hathor. These are Masons building these temples. This is a craft that's from family to family. And there is a particular order of an organization doing it. To build the pyramids, there was a particular order that you had to follow. And you had to rites of passage. You had to go in, enter apprentice in the fellow craftsman, and then to become a master mason. It took years to become a master mason. operative, and then they transform that into speculative to hide that particular craft and knowledge, to actually hide it. So in Africa, yes, masonry is seen throughout all of Africa. And Timbuktu is in through all out of Africa. They were what you call those of the craft, the smith, those of the craft, who also were your priest, your orator, your priest, and were keeper of oral traditions. So masonry is also keepers of oral traditions. It's passed from mouth to ear, and we have certain oral traditions that are passed in the lodge. It's the reason why you got the Tyler outside guarding the lodge. And usually a lodge is on a second floor where you have not the ear of persons coming by and gaining secrets to how to use these tools. You know what I'm saying? So that in Africa, that was a craft. You see it through the Ma Federation also, and you see it through the Malinke and the Mande people. You see it through the Kush people, that there were certain crafts that had to be protected. And so when you go to ancient Kemet, it's very much Masonic. When we deal with, and again, look at the word Mason, Ma, you get it? Ma son, Ma Federation, Ma son, the son of Ma. That's ancient knowledge, oral tradition that's passed on. So to protect it, they form organization. So what happened with the European was that when they went into Africa, especially into Morocco, they saw these organizations, they saw this, and they figured, well, then they wanted to know, but they were only given 3 degrees. There are much more degrees in masonry, but they were giving the most 3 degrees as to help them civilize their people. So we are the originators of masonry. When I talk about we, I'm talking about Africans. You could trace it all the way back into Africa. From Morocco, you could trace it back into ancient Kemet, and you could trace that back into the Nile Valley, because it was building. We were the first builders, the first civilization that archaeologists and anthropologists, paleoanthropologists, the first civilizations that they actually unearthed and they saw and they traced it, is traced back to that area, the valley, Nile Valley, the Congo Basin, into the Green Sahara, and they were building. That's where masonry comes from.
Have you seen any evidence of Freemasonry in Sumeria?
Yeah, Sargon, when you look at the building of those, what they call the ziggurats, that's masonry. And again, remember that those that building that are protecting their craft, they're protecting it, and it's a rite of passage. And so there you see masonry in that. Wherever you see these big buildings and these artifacts, even in Europe, wherever you see that where they got the cornerstone, you know what I'm saying? It's masonry. So same thing with the ziggurat, same thing with the pyramids that was built in Giza. Those are all a Masonic, an order that was passed down, an order, a rite of passage, a succession of things, because they had to protect their craft. You know what I'm saying? Drummers did the same things. Warriors protected their craft also. You know what I'm saying? So you had rites of passage. Yeah. Sumeria, you see it through all. Sargon, the second, I think, or the first Sargon, I'll research that for you, was also known as Nimrod. And some of the builders, they were builders.
And in closing, what do you say to anybody who holds on to this spookism of Freemasonry as this entity that has a very, very bad rep? What do you say to them on that?
I always say this, look, they hijack our school of thoughts, they reform it and they rebrand it for the economics. The core of it is economics. So same thing what happened with masonry, what they call Freemasonry. Well, if it's Freemasonry, then what is it? You have a slave masonry? Yeah, it just doesn't, I don't know. It's a play on words. But masonry, right, was hijacked. Remember, it was taught to the Europeans, but then there came to a time where what they call the Hierophant, the worshipful master, the Hierophant, the past master, the Hierophant, right? The epitome of it all became Albert Pike. Albert Pike. And so Albert Pike started that division between the Hierophant, which back in ancient time would be considered the pharaoh that sat on the seat, was your grand Hierophant, was your pharaoh. Our Hierophant is Amenubi Rapata, or we call Antum Re, right? Antum Re. That's our Hierophant, right? When they split that and they took it and they put Albert Pike as a Hierophant, and then what happened is certain groups that were called Luciferians that they follow, and there's nothing bad with Luciferians and satanic groups, they wanted to organize themselves, but Masonry teaches you the school of organization. You study school, that's the school of thought of organization, right? And also the occult is known as an occult because if you look at the word occult, the OC and cult, the OC is the prefix for occupation. The occupation and culture, right, is two words: cultivating nature, the prefix and the suffix of nature. So the occupation of cultivating nature, which is a condition, is what the occult school is all about. That's what it teaches, you know. So these sciences was held and was protected. But when you got other groups coming in and learning, like Socrates and a lot of Greeks, Ptolemy and Socrates and Greeks coming in and forming, because you see in the Nile Valley that was set by the Masons, they built these temples that became your institutions. So the Greeks did the same thing. That's why today in time, the schooling, you pledge to a Greek sorority fraternity, Alpha, Theta, Alpha, this and this and that, all Greek letters. Our university, African University, our university for Sudan, we pledge to AEO, the ancient Egyptian order, but not the Egyptian with a Y, but with an I, because I is the ninth letter. I'm a member of the ancient Egyptian order, which is a fraternity. So a fraternity, a sacred order, right, that comes out of Sufi, right, that it's like a Masonic order, you know. So the confusion is, again, when you have people that have other agendas, right, and they hijack your economics, because at the end of the day, it was all economics for us. It's how we kept things in order. It's how we kept trade, how we kept our craft. You know what I'm saying? How we created that scarcity and that craft. It was an economic. When they hijack that because they want their civilization to thrive, they take that and they rebrand it and they reform it. So Masonry, there's a split. You have those that go to the Albert Pike, who was a known satanic, and then those that stood with Antum Re, Nile Valley, Antum Re. So that's the split. That's the split. So in Masonry, yeah, just like in Christianity. And I said, this is for Julian. You have, they hijack this science, Karast. They hijack Karast from ancient Egypt. You could find that in the walls of Egypt, Karast, the ascension, right? Messiahship. They hijacked that, rebranded to fit their economics, because Vatican City is a big economic center. They hijack it to form their economics. You know what I'm saying? So when you got empires coming out, you get the confusion. Some of our brothers and sisters get caught on one side of the fence and they get boxed in. But we're here with my brother Esoteric, and we're here to give you the other side of the fence. Free you from that box. Think out the box. Look at this, because you are an originator of it all. The cradle of the civilization, the cradle of it all, it's in the Nile Valley. It's in the Congo Basin. It's in the Green Sahara. It's in that landmass, which when you study oceanography, I'm sorry that I'm rattling on and on. So when you study oceanography, that landmass is so stuck to the crust of the earth, it doesn't move, but all the tectonic plate move out away from that particular continent that they call today Africa.
So a question that I know I'm going to get, and I'm going to ask it up front, is there a conflict between your practice as a Mason and Nile Valley?
No. My form of Masonry is Nile Valley Masonry. There's no conflict at all. It's actually Nile Valley Sciences. In Nile Valley Sciences, you have different schools of thought, because when you go up to the Nile Valley and now, they're like temples and it's not there anymore. But in those temples, you still have writings on those walls, and you have people that oral traditions with certain groups like the Nubo people in Sudan, and you have in the Congo, and you got groups and even in West Africa with the Igbo, you have certain sciences that were kept through oral tradition in Africa. And so one of the oral traditions, one of the sciences is the science of organization, of organizing and protecting your craft. That's Masonry. That's where Masonry comes from, but that's a Nile Valley practice. So no, there's no, I could show you, I don't have it with me, but our apron, you see two that pillars on it, is a different Mason. And that's when you start, even among the European, when they start ascending into the hierarchy in Masonry, they're using a lot of Egyptian symbology, a lot of. If you go to Vatican City, you see a lot of Egyptian statues in Vatican City. You go to Arabia and around Mecca, you see that also. So you see it a lot. Nile Valley science, you see it at the core of every science. So even in Masonry. So when you start going up, and you start reaching the pinnacle of that Masonry, it's going to lead you back into Nile Valley science. And people mistake that for black magic and stuff like that.